Good morning, Berkeley High. If I can have everyone quiet down, please. Thank you for joining us today for our discussion. My name is Soren Whiting, and I'm a senior in academic choice. So the issue of homelessness has been an existing problem in our community and has been growing at a rapid rate. Between the years 2009 and 2015, the homeless population was at an estimated growth rate of 23%. When this survey was taken, there were currently 834 homeless individuals. Today, it is predicted that Berkeley now holds upwards of 1,000 homeless individuals, the majority of them living down Gilman on Shattuck, right across the street from where we are gathered now. In fact, just speaking for myself, I see around 30 to 50 homeless people per day while coming to and from school. Now, Berkeley High has demonstrated in the past that we are a very proactive body of students. We are constantly rallying in support of communities in need. In fact, I am too convinced that you are also disturbed by the growing homeless population in our city, just as I am. And while many of you yearn to fix it, you just don't know the right way how to. You ask yourself, does giving the man down the street $2 really make that much of a difference? Would it be best if I just ignore them? After all, giving them money could lead into a possible addiction they may have. Or do I spend time at food banks trying to help the 1 in 5 families in Alameda County who cannot send their kids off to school with a full stomach? The issue of combating poverty really is quite a conundrum that we struggle to solve. So let's visualize the problem. As you can see in the diagram, growth in homelessness in Berkeley is moving exponentially. Berkeley currently has around 1,000 homeless individuals. This is a giant leap from the 680 in 2009. Living in Berkeley is becoming more unaffordable, and our community is being displaced by this horrific trend. It is because of that I brought together a panel of policymakers, attorneys, and city planners, people whose various job it is to serve all communities, but more specifically, the homeless community. Joining us today will be the Honorable Mayor of Berkeley, Jesse Arreguin, and the Senior Advisor, Jacquelyn McCormick, along with Osha Neumann, who's a pro bono attorney from the East Bay Community Law Center, and Akiba Bradford, who's a senior field representative from Assemblymember Tony Thurman's office. So before we start, let's go over how the panel will run. As you can see, we have 3 categories. Why is this happening? What's being done to address the crisis? And how can we help? I'll be asking questions to the panel members addressing each main concern. However, in between, we'll have around 4 minutes for the audience to ask questions. If your question doesn't get answered the first time around, be sure to raise your hand again, and we'll make sure to answer it. So without further ado, let us begin. So to start off, can you tell us a bit about yourself, your position on homelessness, and why it matters to you?
My name is Osha Neumann. I'm an attorney, a civil rights attorney, a human rights attorney at the East Bay Community Law Center, and I have been working since I became a lawyer about 30 years ago with people who are homeless. And if you ask me why it is, and since I've never been homeless, that this is the population that I ended up working with, it's something I ask myself all the time. I think there's something about their human condition that deeply moves me, and something about their pain that resonates with some pain that I have, not about being homeless, but that is maybe in some kind of universal pain that they express.
Well, I'm Jesse Arreguin. I'm the mayor of the city of Berkeley. I'm really pleased to be on this panel. I want to congratulate Soren for putting this together. Thanks for coming. It's important that you hear about why homelessness exists in our city and things that you can do to make a difference. And when I was running for mayor, one of the main issues I heard from the citizens of Berkeley, from the top of the hills to the flats, was the need for Berkeley to address the crisis of homelessness. And so, as mayor, I made addressing homelessness one of my top priorities. And really, homelessness is a failure of our society. To see so many people on our streets, it is unacceptable. We must do everything we can to get people housed and to get them onto a better life.
And I'm Jacquelyn McCormick. I'm the mayor's senior advisor. And he has honored me with giving me the responsibility of being his point person for homelessness. I have served for over 30 years on community boards of various types, many that serve our homeless and underserved populations. And there has been no greater honor for me than to be out there working with our community-based organizations, talking with our people in our shelters, our homeless individuals that live on our street, learning their specific situation and learning more about what we can do as a community to become a compassionate community and really address this issue.
My name is Akiba Bradford. I'm the field representative for Assemblywoman Tony Thurman's office. I got connected to this issue probably early in my career when I worked for a juvenile justice research organization. And in that opportunity, I was able to research LGBT youth as well as youth who identified as straight youth, what their pathways were into the juvenile justice system. And one of the reasons, one of the correlations of their ending up in the juvenile justice system was homelessness. And so ever since then, I've just been involved in that issue. I've also was a homeless youth before. So this issue really sits very close to me and resonates with me. That's why I advocate for this issue.
Thank you all. So Osha, could you start us off? Who are the homeless?
You know, I was down on 2nd Street where there's a whole homeless encampment between Cedar and Page. It's tents going all along there. And I brought down some of the law students that I work with to speak with a homeless person because they had not, many of them had not actually spent time with a homeless person. And we went and sat in a lean-to there, talked to a woman named Mama Bear, who's been homeless most of her time. And she asked the students that I brought, you know, what were their experience with homelessness, who did they know, and most of them had not actually ever spoken to a person who's homeless. And the first thing she said to them was, you know, we're just people. We're people. And I think that's maybe the start about who are the homeless. You know, they're people. They're having a different experience than probably most of the people here, although I'm not going to assume that there aren't people right here among you students who have experienced homelessness. I've never been homeless. We can give you statistics about who they are and how they break down. I think other panelists may do that. But I have to say one thing about this panel, along with many parents like this, is there's nobody up here who can answer that question for themselves and say, I am homeless, you are looking at me, we're talking about the other, and we should think about that. Thank you.
So, Mayor Arreguin, recently in a Guardian article, you were quoted as saying, literally the soul of our city is at stake in regards to the housing crisis. How does this relate to the homeless problem? And what do you mean by that?
Well, what I meant was rents are skyrocketing in the city of Berkeley, and now you have to spend over $1 million to buy a home in the city. And so more and more people that grew up in Berkeley, who went to Berkeley High, people that teach our students, people that work in our city, students, seniors, disabled people are being priced out of our city. They cannot afford to live in Berkeley because it's becoming more and more difficult to find affordable housing. We are building more housing, but not enough affordable housing. And so, not surprisingly, we're seeing more people on our streets. The recent Alameda County homeless count showed that I think 79% of the people that they counted were people that were residents of Alameda County, people that were previously housed. So a large number of the recent homeless are people that are victims of the housing crisis. The lack of and access to affordable housing has a direct correlation to whether people become housed. And we're addressing this issue in a number of ways. We're working to stem the tide of homelessness by providing financial resources that people, when they're facing eviction, can stay housed. If you can provide $200 to $500 to help somebody pay their rent so they don't end up on the streets, that makes a huge difference, as well as addressing the needs of people on our streets who want to be housed.
Thank you. So, Akiba, as this problem has been growing, increasingly law enforcement is on the front line of dealing with the crisis. What is the role of law enforcement concerning homelessness, and do laws need to change to accommodate them?
Yeah, I think when we look at the criminalization of the homeless population, it has skyrocketed, and it's one of those things where we have to look at who's giving those types of directives. I'm glad to see the city has kind of changed its tune and not necessarily are criminalizing. They, struck down no on S for the city of Berkeley. So that's a great opportunity for us to not criminalize, where people sit or stand or lay down and things of that nature. But we also are seeing this criminalization of youth. And so it's coming from the prison to school pipeline, young people getting pushed out, those kids ending up homeless, that homelessness creating this opportunity for young people to create these survival crimes, and then them ending up in the juvenile justice system. And survival crimes are like prostitution or petty theft and things of that nature. So the role of law enforcement, is to enforce laws. And in that, we do have people who want to protect their property, people who want to protect their homes and whatnot. And as a result of that, that could, commercial businesses, that could lead to us doing that. The role, in some way, is for our law enforcement to serve our populations. And so it's important for our law enforcement to know the types of services that are available, what needs to be, what shelters are available, and who is doing sort of service providing for mental health. It's gonna take for them to sort of identify and know those services in order to be able to sort of triage at that moment when they have direct contact with a person who is homeless, in order to sort of combat that ability for them to sort of just criminalize and take them to jail. So I do think that we do have to look at sort of policies, and it's also just looking and seeing how we can work with our police chiefs and our local leadership to identify other directives other than criminalization, possibly services.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to take a moment to answer questions, or people ask questions from the audience. So if you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll pass the microphone over to you. Any questions? One question in the back, okay.
Hi, my name is Miss Now too. I'm the government teacher here. I was just wondering, are you involving the homeless in trying to fixing the homeless crisis? Are there leaders in the community that people have spoken to that are actually working on this crisis with you guys?
Jacquelyn, would you like to answer that?
There is a network that the mayor put together before he actually was elected, the Homeless Task Force, which included many of people within the homeless community, homeless activists and advocates. Mr. Neumann was on that panel that identified and worked with a list of needs that would address our homeless needs within this community. It's really important to hear from the people who are experiencing homelessness, that are living in our shelters and on our streets. And that is one of the things that I am doing for the mayor. I'm literally out there talking to people in shelters, on the street, interacting, to understand who they are and to kind of be able to tell their stories, so as a community we can understand and break down the stigmas of homelessness. I can't tell you how many times I've heard from people who call in with complaints of, they're just all drunks and they just want happy living on the street, they don't want to have jobs. And the reality, and I'd like to share some of these statistics with you because I think it's really important that people understand who is homeless and what the demographics and the personalities and the stories of the homeless are. 20% of the people are chronically homeless, which means they've been literally living on our streets for over a year, not necessarily by choice, because 52% of the people on our street are on our streets because they've had money issues. There's only 11% of the people in Berkeley streets that have substance abuse issues. Only 6% have been incarcerated previously. 43% of the homeless have psychiatric or emotional problems. 18% of our youth, transitional age youth, have come from the foster care system. There are only 3% of the community out there living in our streets that don't want to come in, that don't want to have a permanent home. So if we had opportunities for housing for the 1,000 people that are on our streets, what a difference it would make in our community.
You have a question? All right, one more question right there.
So you addressed that just now, kind of, but I feel like a large chunk of the population of homeless people have some sort of mental health problem or issue, and how are you going to address that? Because I feel like it's a pretty large percentage.
It's, yeah, according to the homeless count, 43% of the people that were surveyed have self-reported psychiatric or emotional conditions. And so there is a large number of people on our streets that do have are suffering with mental illness. It's a real challenge. I think bigger picture, our system is broken. We have many people that are in need of services, and we do not have enough resources. Our police, 35% of their calls are related to homeless or mental health issues. People get 5150, they go to Judge George, there's no bed capacity there, they end up back on the streets. So we need to do more to create more services in Berkeley and countywide so that people that can get help can get help. But we actually just implemented a new program, the Homeless Outreach and Treatment Team, the HOT team, and their job is to go out and actually interact with homeless people who do have mental health conditions to get them connected to services and if they so desire, housing. So that's a new initiative that Berkeley has launched which we're going out there, we're doing direct street outreach. It could be better, we want to expand it, but it's a starting point for us to actually interact with people on the street and get them connected to the treatment that they need. Oftentimes people don't know who want housing or services where to go. And people ping pong from place to place. Sometimes they try to go get services, they're denied access. So we're also working on trying to improve how services are delivered to our homeless population in the city of Berkeley as well.
Let me just say that, this society is making us all crazy. And, in this room, there are people with mental health problems. There are probably people up here in the panel that have mental health problems. If you weren't crazy when you became homeless, homelessness is going to drive you crazy. And definitely you're going to get very, very depressed. So that's just, unfortunately, the world we're living in right now.
Thank you very much, Osha. So this next question actually is for you, Osha. So there appears to be a growing number of encampments popping up around Berkeley, one such as Liberty City, which happened right across the street from our campus. And the other is the Here There movement, which is happening on Shattuck Avenue. Why do you think these camps have popped up? And can you tell us a little bit about their purpose and potential problems they may have?
These camps have pumped up. They've come up because we don't have any place for people to live. I mean, there is no housing for people in this town. We're going to have homeless people. We're not going to solve the homeless problem. There's an organization called Everybody Home. Everybody is not going home. I'm sorry. They're not. Not when you have $1 billion to pay for a house and you have to get $3,000 something is the median income to get into an apartment in Berkeley. It ain't happening. So they have to live somewhere. And they're living in tents. And you're seeing them. They're down on 2nd Street and that Liberty City. That actually was among the most together, organized, political homeless people that there are in this town. And they put that together partly so that you had to look at them and they could say to the city, we're here and you should be doing something. A little more than you're doing. No, you may not solve it, but you can do more and we're going to be here and we want you to do it. And that's what that encampment was. It was very organized, very intentional. I'm not going to go into the whole history of it. It got pushed and pushed and pushed and criminalized and it got tickets and citations for garbage that I had to go into court and deal with. Now they're at the Here There sign and they're being left, which is wonderful. It's a good sign for the city. But that's what it is. That's why you're having seeing everywhere you go, you're going to be seeing these tent cities. You're going to see them for a while.
Thank you very much, Osha. So recently, Mayor, you have announced the Pathways Project. Can you tell us a bit about what it is?
So Berkeley spends roughly $17 million on direct services to the homeless. And these are meal programs, places to get meals, places where you can get shelter, job programs. But they really just deal with the emergency condition of homelessness, so really sort of Band-Aid solutions. And not necessarily focused on how we prevent homelessness or keep people out of homelessness. And what we know is that housing first works. If you get somebody housed, they will stay housed. That will break the cycle of homelessness. And so we need to move Berkeley more towards a housing first approach. And so in looking at the needs of our homeless population that was informed by input from homeless residents and service providers, as well as look at what are cities doing throughout the country, Portland, Seattle, San Francisco, a lot of really awesome, innovative things. There are tiny home communities that are really cool. There are navigation centers. There are all these different ways that cities are responding to the crisis in really innovative ways. And so looking at all those different models, my office has proposed, and we are implementing the Pathways Project, which is our plan to address homelessness in the city of Berkeley. And I agree with Osha, we unfortunately are not going to be able to end homelessness in Berkeley. We will always have people who unfortunately will be on the streets. But I strongly believe that we can significantly reduce the number of homeless people in the city of Berkeley. And so we want to do that in a number of ways. We're going to be, starting in January or February, opening a facility on 2nd Street between Cedar and Virginia, which is a navigation center, what I like to call a souped-up shelter, where it will be low barrier. You can bring your pets, you can live with your spouses, you can live with groups. You will have services on site. It will be a 24/7 shelter. And this will be a break from living in encampments, living in oftentimes a very wet, cold, and potentially dangerous situation. We want to provide some dignity and some respite for people to get off the streets. And once we get people in this navigation center, we're going to connect them to housing through rapid rehousing subsidies. We're also working to create more permanent supportive housing in the city of Berkeley so that we can get people off the streets and get them housed. We also need to work regionally. We need to work with other cities. So we want to stem the tide of homelessness, get people off the streets, and get them housed. That's what we're trying to do.
Thank you very much. So Akiba, looking outside of Berkeley for a moment, are there other communities that can play as an example of what Berkeley could be doing right now?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it is happening. I think you guys are, I think Berkeley, well, let's just take a look. Fresno changed some of their zoning laws and became the first county in the nation to allow tiny homes on wheels to be accessory dwelling units on a residential property lot. So when it comes to maximizing space, that is empowering the community to provide shelter for those who are in need, or those who want to use their accessory dwelling units as an income property. So when it comes to some examples, I think we all could take a play from Fresno and look at our zoning laws and see how we maximize our space, see what we can do with those unused lots and things of that nature. So that's just one example of a city who I think has done some tremendous strides to deal with their population, and something that I think Berkeley is on the rise of doing as well.
So, besides providing homeless individuals with housing, how is the Pathways Project going to provide homeless people tools and opportunities so they don't have to rely on it?
So the idea is at the Bridge Living Community, which is what we're calling our navigation center, it's going to be in 2 phases. Phase 1 will be modular housing community, and phase 2 will be an actual tiny home community, modeled after Portland and Seattle and Fresno's tiny home villages, something that will be self-governing, similar to some of the encampments we have in our city as well. That model works. But key to all this is having services on site. And what San Francisco does is they have job programs that come visit the navigation center. They have their housing navigation people come and work with them to get them set up for benefits and also to get them connected to housing. They have mental health services on site. They have a variety of social services that people need to address their needs and to help get them connected to housing, delivered on site. It's very difficult to deliver services to people that are on the streets. We have to have a lot of outreach workers to do that. And so by having one place where we have people, where they can live and where we can have a variety of services delivered 24/7, it can make an impact. Job services particularly are important. Because if you get housed, you need a job to have income to stay housed. And so that's an area where I think that's what I'd like to focus on next after we do all this work on housing, is expanding job opportunities for homeless people, because that's so important.
So Jacquelyn, is there a role for students in the Pathways Project? If so, what is it?
Well, I think there's a huge role for students in general for around the whole situation of the homeless crisis. And the biggest thing that I can ask for all of you to do is to break down the stigma of homelessness, to go back and share with your families and the rest of the people in the community really what is the face of the homelessness. You'll be amazed if you enter into a conversation with someone who's on the street and hear their story. Some of them, again, it's money problems. There's a woman in the women's shelter who is 62-year-old African-American woman who worked her whole life. She had an $800 a month apartment, one-bedroom apartment in Oakland. She got sick, she lost her job, and she couldn't pay her rent for 3 months. She did apply for Social Security, but it takes 3 or 4 months to get that money in. Well, the landlord kicked her out for back rent. So the first time in her life, she ended up in a shelter. This woman was perfectly capable of paying that rent for the rest of her life, and now she's in a situation where she has to look at paying significantly more to live someplace and doesn't have the resources to be able to do that. So these are some of the stories that come out of the conversations that I've had with our homeless population. We are a compassionate community, and if we could open up that dialogue within our community, I truly also believe that we could open up housing opportunities that could work with the Pathways Project in identifying and actually having additional housing resources available for people who are high functioning that just lost their job and need an inexpensive place to live for a while to get back on their streets. How many elderly people do we have in this community that ramble around in huge giant houses that maybe have a room they could rent for a small amount of money? How many large homes that have a second dwelling unit or an au pair unit in it that's not occupied right now or could be occupied for a small amount of money? We could increase housing for our homeless that can tie into Pathways within our existing infrastructure and within our existing housing stock. But until people understand what the issue is, we're not going to be able to do that. So a big piece of what this community can do, and I will be coming back to you because we're going to have a campaign next year, to tell these stories. Tell the story of homelessness. Share it with your friends. Share it with your families, because the more people understand what the issue is, the more willing they'll be able to be part of the solution.
And I just want to share one statistic. This is from the Berkeley Unified School District. There are roughly over 300 students in the K through 12 in Berkeley schools that are what are called McKinney-Vento youth. These are youth that meet the federal definition of homelessness. And so these are youth that may be living in shelters, they may be staying on relatives' couches, but they don't have permanent housing. And so while we see homelessness every single day on the streets, we see people that are much older, the reality is there's a lot of young people that are homeless, people in your very school, as well as people that are 18 to 24 who were in the foster care system, that have gone out of the foster care system, who are ending up on the streets as well. So homelessness is not unique to just the elderly or to the long-term residents. We are seeing, sadly, a very growing number of younger people that are ending up on our streets as well. And I think that's a population through working with organizations like YAY, which is down on University Avenue, which works with homeless youth, Youth Spirit Artworks, that does great work with homeless youth, that you can make a difference in helping those people.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to open an audience up for some open mic questions. So if anyone has any questions, please raise your hand and make sure to get to. 2, 3 over there.
My question is actually, well, it was answered a little bit from what the mayor said before, but do you have like a program where homeless people can go to like take a shower, get a fresh change of clothes, or anything like that?
Yes, there are many places where clothing is available. At the Berkeley Drop-In Center, there's restrooms, there's food all day long. Right across the street at the Veterans Center, showers are available, laundry's available. There's food service there, women's drop-in center has showers available. Yes, there are those services. Our office is actually right now creating a resource guide, a little pocket resource guide. We'll make those resource guides available to people in the community that want to share them with homeless individuals, so people can really be aware of where those services are. But yes, they do exist.
I got one of those, the pocket whatevers. Yeah, the pocket.
Sorry, what was that again?
When you guys make the pocket guide, can I get one of those?
Absolutely. We'll make them available.
Thank you very much for your question. Okay, we have a few people over here.
Hello. I was wondering what you would do about general health care, because like on the bus I saw a man who might not have had a home, and he had a huge tumor on his face. And I was assuming that he couldn't get it removed because of money problems, and I was just wondering what you would do about that.
Akiba, do you want to talk about healthcare?
It's a huge problem. It really is. I mean, it's like we have a health, what crisis don't we have in this society? We have a housing crisis and we have a health crisis, a healthcare crisis. And there just isn't enough outreach and healthcare that's accessible to really, really poor people. It just isn't there. I mean, they can go to some of the clinics that we have here, but can they get to that clinic? Can they get an appointment? In a lot of cases, not. I spent 5 hours yesterday with a woman who was down on 2nd Street. She's like in her 60s. She cannot walk. She uses 2 canes. Getting out of this chair is practically impossible. Her legs are swollen and red. She has hepatitis C. She probably has skin cancer. And she's out there and she can't get a wheelchair, and she wasn't able to get to appointments. And I couldn't find any social service help that could get her to her medical appointment at Lifelong. And there she had a 15-minute appointment, and the doctor was listening to all the problems that she said, and I can't help all of these things. Maybe you should go to the emergency room. That's happening all over. I mean, being outside is not healthy. It's not healthy for you. And hard as it is for almost anybody in society to get the kind of health care they want, it's especially hard for people who are homeless. They can't get to the appointments and they can't get to their appointment. It's part of the crisis that we have to deal with. There are things we can do. We can have better outreach to people. We can have a mobile medical van to go to these places. That is happening in Oakland and Alameda County. Nowhere near.
So what are you going to do about education? So do you have any programs where people can, if they dropped out of high school, where they can finish that education for free, or do they have to pay for that?
So as far as there has been an opportunity where a bill has come through the pipeline this legislative cycle, and I do want to kind of put that out there for you all, because young people are actually at risk of becoming homeless. We know that over 200,000 young people who are under the age of 18 have at least one day or more where they're homeless. We know that between the ages of 18 and 24, there are thousands more. So when it comes down to the dropout rates, we can see a correlation between homelessness and dropout rates and their criminality. But there is a bill that will, AB 365, which is authored by Assemblymember Maransushi, would exempt a pupil who may be homeless or in foster care or who are involved with the juvenile justice court system to be exempted from certain state coursework requirements where they could receive either full or partial credit, and it will allow them to kind of work with the school district to create more of a plan, a completion plan for how they want to graduate. And it could give them also an opportunity to have a 5th year in high school to kind of make that opportunity where you can get your high school diploma. So I do want, from a state level, we are hoping that our students and our school districts can work together to create a plan so that you don't, no matter if you are homeless, you will be able to meet your educational goals.
Thank you so much for your questions. We're going to move forward in the panel now. So this question is directed for Osha. As a student, we walk by people in need, people who are visibly homeless. Now, do we reach into our pocket and give them money? Or is there something better we can do that has a real impact? Because I think there's a very real perception that simply giving people change in your pocket could feed into a believed addiction that people could have.
Before I answer that question, I'd like to see a show of hands of how many people here when give when people ask. You know, everybody's been panhandled here, I say. So let's say I have money in your pocket. How many people here, when they're asked for spare change, give? How many people? What do you think?
75%.
75%? It's really interesting to think about why you give and why you don't give. For the people who don't and the people who do, because it brings up all the issues and prejudices and feelings we have about the people we're encountering, those other people, and about ourselves and about our privilege and so on and so forth. And the issue of, well, gee, if I give them money, they may use it on drugs. Yeah, they may use it on drugs. So I know that. They're probably going to use it for pet food or food for themselves, but they could use it for drugs. They're not bopping me on the head. They're not breaking into my car. And heck, if I was out in the street, I'd probably be on drugs. I mean, what else is there to make life halfway decent? So no, I'm not going to go judging people around that, but people do, and it's worth thinking about this. Thinking about, okay, maybe I give to the poor old woman, you know, who can barely get up and is really very sick, and I'll give her money, but there's that young kid, you know, he's just crap, he should be working, you know, I'm not going to think about that stuff. Just think about it, that's all.
Thank you very much, Osha. So I want to open up this question to everyone on the panel. I think we also need to address the unfortunate reality that some people feel harassed by aggressive or confrontational behavior by a homeless person. How should we react when faced with this behavior? And what advice would you give to students that may have faced this in the past?
Well, you don't tolerate it. I mean, if someone's messing with you, don't let them mess with you. I mean, for real, I mean, come on. No, just because they're homeless doesn't mean they have a right to mess with you or to be violent or scary. No, don't let them do that, you know? So walk away. You know, I'm not going to say get physical. I'm saying call the police, whatever. It'll happen. You know, there are people out there who are messed up. You know, a lot of them are housed. We don't say, for example, oh, we got to get rid of the homeless people because, you know, 3 weeks ago this guy came and peed on my Lexus. We don't do that. Or, you know, or came up and pushed me and so on. You know, if somebody robs you, and you happen to be in a house, we're going to say should get rid of everybody in the house because this guy in a house robbed me. We're not going to do that. So just, you know, be real. You know, come on.
Yeah, you know, obviously anyone being threatened or feeling unsafe is completely unacceptable. And, you know, what I would do in this situation is obviously step away. And if you really feel that the person is being violent or is breaking the law, I would, you know, flag down an ambassador or a police officer and let them know, you know, whether you're housed or unhoused, it's not acceptable to commit violence or to threaten people. It's not acceptable. And unfortunately, what we are seeing as well, oftentimes a relationship between serious mental illness and people acting out on the street as well. And so sometimes people need help. They need mobile crisis to come in to help them, or they need the police to come to help them. But no one should tolerate being threatened. It's not acceptable. We have many laws in the books to deal with illegal, threatening behavior. The solution is not passing more laws. The solution is knowing how to deal with the situation.
I'm just going to tell you personally what I do because, you know, being at City Hall, I have a lot of interaction with people who are in the park, and there's various degrees of people's mental health and their capacity in the park. You guys know that, you see it all day long. And what I've learned in taking this job and being out there and being exposed to it literally every day, you know, when I show up, when I park, when I leave in the evening, when I walk across the park to go to council meetings and back, if you just look at someone and say hello and treat them like a person, because they are, it's a whole, the interaction you have with that person and the people that surround them is completely different from on a day-to-day basis. I mean, seriously. I have people who ensure now, and I didn't even ask them to do that my parking space doesn't get, taken every day because they know that I park there. And it's because I've developed relationships with the people in the park. Violence is another thing. You do step away. You have to take care for yourself. I mean, I think people have been trained, students certainly have been trained on what to do. Scream as loud as you can, run as fast as you can if you really feel physically threatened. But the perception of to be afraid, the perception that you're going to be attacked or you're going to be confronted by people who are homeless is a myth. It's a very, very small percentage. And there are people that have been faced with a different world than you are in, and just treat them like individuals.
So I think, everyone answered that question very well around being confronted when you're in the community. But I want you all to take a look at the fact that the mayor really did release a statistic that said around 300 students are homeless. Now that means that you are sitting, or possibly could be sitting next to someone who is in a crisis right now. And so I want you all to look at how you are creating that safe space at school for someone to deal with this issue, for someone to be able to either talk to you about it or for someone to talk to a teacher about it. Your teachers are also dealing with a lot. They could be dealing with homelessness themselves. I know the Assembly member has credited a House bill to address the need for teachers who are experiencing homelessness or could be experiencing homelessness by providing the district money so that they can build some housing. So when it comes to confrontation, try not to be so short with each other. Try not to really, create an unsafe bullying type of environment. That girl don't got this, she smell like this. Like that may be a time for you as a community of students to come together to really rally and help, relieve that person of that crisis in some kind of way, whether it's doing somebody's hair or whether it's providing, buying them lunch or whatnot. It's just the nice gestures that can help combat and not create confrontation or defensiveness when it comes to homelessness in schools.
So I'd like to just build off a bit of what Akiba just said. So what are the ways that students can help the homeless population? How do we make a lasting difference? Osha, can you answer that?
I give money to people who ask me for money as much as I can. I think one of the main things you can do is actually get to know someone who's homeless. That would be huge. Just develop a relationship with somebody out there. Talk to them, get to know their life story. It's not that hard to do. I mean, you can start off with somebody you see all the time who's panhandling. And for a lot of people who are homeless, I mean, there are all these services, there are all these pathway projects and things like that people are, the government is trying to do for people. But for a lot of people who are homeless, the reason why they're able to make it is because somebody who's housed has taken a particular interest in them and is actually giving them a kind of help. And that's the kind of thing you can do. I mean, you can also, as people have said, you can spread the word about that people who are homeless are people, and we need to be honest and real about the society that's created this homelessness. You can do that. You can volunteer for organizations. All of that stuff is good. But I would say, first of all, just get to know someone who's homeless.
As I mentioned, there are a number of great organizations that are within walking distance of Berkeley High, actually, where you can volunteer. Dorothy Day does a meal program in the morning and in the evening, where they're always looking for volunteers to help provide meals to the homeless. It's a really great experience. Yay, down on University Avenue at the Lutheran Church, is a homeless youth shelter and has services for homeless youth. There's Youth Spirit Artworks, which is in South Berkeley. That is a jobs art program with homeless youth in Berkeley. I think another thing is to share with your family and with your friends what you learned today about who are the homeless, and that they're not this, invisible, scary group of people, but rather they are people that may have been your neighbors who've lost their housing due to the housing crisis. There are people that may be in your school. It's a very diverse population, and also to be a catalyst for change. Berkeley High is always at the forefront of speaking out and walking out and standing up for things. Maybe Berkeley High can have a homeless awareness week and have a series of activities to raise awareness about homelessness, to lobby federal, state, and local officials on homelessness. I think there are ways that you can also to take action to work with us to address this problem.
You guys have the right to vote now at the age of 16, and there's going to be some initiatives on the ballot coming up that need your support. In June of 2018, there's going to be an initiative on the California ballot to increase, what is it, $400 billion or $4 billion? $4 billion, yeah, I wish it was 400. Yeah, $4 billion for affordable housing development in the state. Vote for things like that. Vote for when initiatives come up to support homeless services. Vote. Get out there, be a catalyst, and use your democracy to speak for you.
I agree with what Jacquelyn just said. But there's something that I want you all to do. This is, first off, November this year is going to be the homeless. It's going to be called, it's the Runaway and Homeless Youth Prevention Month. And I want to just task you all with doing something as a school around that month, around November. That's also a holiday month as well. So I would like to task you all to do that. Do something around that month. There's also something else. It's about voting. The $4 billion bill that's coming on, that's going to be on the ballot in June. That's one way. But I want you guys to really look at what your situation is as youth. 20 out of 58 counties in the state of California have services for young people who are homeless. 20 counties out of 58. And there's over 200,000 of you all as youth, but under the age of 18 who is homeless. That's a huge number, and that's a lack of disconnected services. So I would love for you all to get to know the Assemblymember office, Assemblymember Tony Thurman's office. Come talk to us at the district. Help us really come up with legislation. We're gearing up for a new legislative cycle. We would love to hear from you all on how we can do a better job to serve you all, because you're the population that is a highly increased population for homelessness, and only 20 out of 58 counties in the state only get services for you all. Only 10 of them will have grants, so that means even half of those providers don't even get enough funding. We need you guys to be advocates. We need you guys to write those letters. We need you guys to show up and be a part of these organizations. So your voice is very imperative for us to be able to provide increased services for you all as young people.
Thank you everyone for coming here. Thank you panel members. Thank you audience for your awesome questions. And just like once you leave,